We're live. It's 7:08, so I'm a couple of minutes late. That's what happens. I'm going to juice this thing up a little bit, get a little brightness on it. So I am, as you can see, I am back from West Tech. I'm chock full of all kinds of dyno data and testing and photos and video and all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm getting stuff up. As you see from today, I got 2 videos up today. First one, and we're going to talk about both of those tonight. First one was the 8.1 liter part 1, where we ran stock exhaust manifolds, ran a couple of different size headers, ran some collector extensions, ran an air intake, which of all of those things, to me, the surprising thing was the air intake. I thought for sure that the air intake would kind of change things, but it really showed no gain at all. So spoiler alert on the air intake versus the open throttle body. I was kind of surprised about that. The other things, the headers and stuff, and we'll get into all that and how impressive this thing is. Really, I think guys are excited mostly about on the 8.1 is what happened. I mean, it's cool to get a new motor like that because it's definitely an other guys Gen 7 deal. So definitely other guys as far as big blocks go. So you don't see nearly as many of those. There seems to be much less like information available on those. Exactly how much piston to valve clearance we have, exactly how much retainer to seal clearance we have, how much cam can we put in, and what are the specs on the stock cams. So I'm going to try to find out all of that information, and I got a lot of that data, and I'm going to obviously share that in video form. It's cool that we got it running because now I have some direct comparisons between that motor and other things which I can apply to and make videos with. So that will be awesome. But it's a cool motor. It was brand new, and it comes with a very cool story because Amos was nice enough to supply that. And then Darren actually brought the motor out, which is very cool. He was picking it up on his trucking route, which was, you know, I was ready. I was all in on going out and picking it up and doing a road trip out in Arizona, because that's, you know, that's not too bad of a trip especially from Southern California, from down at West Tech, and going out and picking up. But he was delivering it, so it was there, and I got there, and we were able to put it on and get it up and running thanks to Ish and Eric. And we basically just used an LS harness, and Ish just had to switch 2 of the pins in the crank trigger. And then once we did that, we ran it as a batch fire, didn't use the camshaft or didn't use the cam sensor, ran it as a batch fire. And I put bigger injectors in it because especially after playing with those factory injectors, which were just, for whatever reason, they were clogged and they did not want to cooperate, because I cleaned them 4 or 5 times. And every time I cleaned them and put them back on the ASNU flow machine, a new one would leak. So we would pressurize it, and then as I was testing the other one, there would always be one. It was never the same one, which is odd. So I think there was a lot of rust and stuff in the fuel rail. So they probably have stuff stuck in them. We could reverse flow them and maybe get it out and get them all working. But the good thing is that, you know, why not prep for what's going to happen later on in the further tests? So putting a set of 80-pound injectors in there prepped us to be able to run 2 things. One, obviously we were going to run boost, not a lot. We only ran like 7 pounds, but we were also going to run E85. So the combination of that was going to need a bigger injector anyway. So why do a bunch of tuning with a small injector, only then to have to change it and then upgrade it and retune everything? So that just didn't make sense. In fact, when we started it, we maybe even started it on the 2-bar map sensor, which is, again, just good prep, because then we can, and if not, it's fairly easy to extrapolate what's going on. But the 8.1 liter worked very well. A couple of things I was surprised with, because, you know, when you're running this testing, you do some research and you talk to people, you know, various people that are in that particular market. And there are guys that are experts and stuff. And so you get information from them. And one of the things that they warned me about is they said, well, the factory, you know, these motors are not high revving, which is obviously 100% true. I mean, the thing makes peak power at like, you know, 4,000 RPM or 42 or 300 RPM. So it's definitely not a high winding motor. It doesn't need to be, because it's big and it makes lots of torque. And everything about it is designed to do exactly that. It's big. It has a really long runner intake manifold. It has mild cam timing. You know, basically everything about it is saying, hey, look, I'm going to make low speed power. And for a big, heavy truck application, you know, it's kind of ideal for that. But they warned me about the valve springs and said, if you try to rev this thing, you know, you'll just run into valve float. And then it would be even more so when we had boost enter the equation, because obviously the factory one doesn't run boost. And I was surprised that we were able to run this thing successfully to 5,500 RPM under boost with the stock camshaft and with the stock valve springs, especially after measuring them. They're not very good. They're not very stellar. I think I don't know if I have the data here on the 8.1. Oh, I do. So on the 8.1, and I'll be putting this maybe in another video, but they had 110 pounds of seat pressure, which is, you might think, well, that's not too bad. It's not too bad if you're a flat tappet cam, but 110 for a hydraulic roller is not great. And they only had 250 at 500 lift. So again, it does just not only does it not have a ton of seat pressure, but it doesn't have a lot of spring rate in general, because we even, a 500 lift cam is something that we would try to run in this. And by the way, if you tried to run a 500 lift cam, you might not be successful, because when I measured retainer to seal clearance, it's somewhere in the 490 to 500 thousandths. We had to, when I did the flow testing on these, I had to take the seals off, obviously, to get into the higher lift ranges so that we could airflow test it. And that's something that I want to revisit, because I'm told that the airflow numbers on these things are actually much higher than what I got. And I'm curious as to why. It might be because the heads that I flowed were old and used and covered in years of grime. But I did take the valves out. I cleaned the valve stems, and I cleaned the back of the valve, I cleaned the front of the valve, cleaned the edges of the valve. I even chipped away at the combustion chamber and stuff as best I could with kind of a screwdriver. I didn't get in there and really get after it, but I did clean everything out, and it worked fairly well. And so I thought, and then we also floated on a 4-500 bore, which I thought of all the things that should probably improve things, because the inside diameter of the chamber is almost 4-500, despite the fact that the bore size is only 4-250. So there's overhang on the combustion chamber relative to the bore. Not always ideal for flow, and not always ideal for power. We saw a similar thing on the factory 396 motors, had a notch in the bore for valve clearance. Now this one doesn't have that because it doesn't really need it. It doesn't have enough camshaft to worry about that. But when you put a big camshaft in, a relatively big camshaft with lots of duration and stuff, and then so they had to notch the bores for those, and maybe that would be a benefit on this motor. I don't know. We'll have to see. But run in stock trim, the thing did pretty well. I mean, with long tube headers on it, it made 424 horsepower. It made like 411 with the stock exhaust manifolds, because we ran both of those. And then I ran the small headers on it, and it made almost the same thing. Maybe picked up a little bit in a little bit of a range there. But what I was looking for is not so much a comparison between those two headers specifically. I wanted to see that when we went from a 2 1/4 primary down to a 2-inch primary, that we would see a trend that, yes, and also going from a 4-inch collector into a 3.5-inch collector, I wanted to see a trend that said, hey, look, yes, I'm starting to like going smaller on the header, especially in this RPM range and power range. I mean, it's only making, 424 horsepower, and we're only running the thing to 5,500 RPM. It's making peak power way before that. So we're not running very much RPM. So I was kind of hoping to see, hey, look, yeah, I'm starting to like it. I've picked up torque or whatever. I've picked up power at various places, but we just didn't see that. Now, I don't know if we might not see more of that if we went to, an inch and 3/4 header, an 1 7/8. I don't know that I would go down to 1 3/4 on a big block on a 496, but it might be worth trying. So, we'll have to look and see what the available headers are that people actually put in the vehicles to get an idea of what's going on there. But I liked how we ran this thing down as low as 1,800 RPM, which is kind of a realistic range for the guys running these trucks. And they'll definitely be running it there. I don't know how often they'll be running it at wide open throttle there, but I did, so we could start from there and kind of go up. But it shows that these things have, even at 1,800, at least at wide open throttle, we saw, nearly 500 foot-pounds. So it was fairly impressive. And somebody had sent me a text or message or something telling me that they wanted me to run a test at part throttle to see if the thing made more torque at part throttle than at wide open throttle. And to answer your question, no, that didn't happen. I tried it on this motor and I tried it on the LS, and we could do that easy on a stationary load in. And at part throttle, the load in torque is less than it is when we go to wide open throttle. So that's but those, I like those kinds of questions. That's an interesting question, because there is some internet level of logic there that you think, hey, we can increase the velocity or whatever. But the thing is, I think in that particular case, what you're thinking of is that we're thinking about airspeed going through the throttle body. but that airspeed doesn't continue once it goes into an open plenum. It doesn't continue at that speed. It slows way down after it gets in there, and then has to, it doesn't go in at that airspeed and then continue at that airspeed into all the cylinders. It can't do that going into an open plenum like that. So it would be nice if it did, and I like in tricks like that, I would love to see changes in airflow and changes in torque. That would be great, but it just didn't do that when I tested it. I'm excited about getting the video up to show you guys what happened with the turbo, because it naturally, as you might expect on the 8.1, made a lot more power, and not only that, it made a massive amount of torque. And as a little icing on the cake there, Mike Davis had his truck there when I was doing a lot of this stuff, and his truck's been running around for hundreds of thousands of miles with a turbo on an 8.1 in a vehicle, towing stuff. And I mean, being a truck, not just like I put it in there and it's kind of a racy truck and I get on it once in a while. This was like all the time, all day, every day, big heavy trailers and all kinds of stuff. And the thing is just continued to run. Maybe I'll do a video on his truck, which would kind of be cool, because it's a remote mounted turbo also. And it's a remote mounted turbo from some sort of diesel big rig deal. So it is kind of, I mean, it's cool in multiple different ways. The intercooler that uses is the one that I've used many times from CX Racing. And so it's the right kind of thing. I mean, it's exactly the kind of thing that I appreciate. And so maybe a video on that will be very cool. So we'll jump over now from the 8.1, which all of that testing worked out very well. The video is doing well. People seem to like that. And I like that it's an other guy's thing and it's a different big block, because I've run lots of big block tests. And so we're going to do lots of 8.1 stuff. We'll do a variety of different camshafts, and then hopefully some ported stock heads, and then maybe some aftermarket heads. We're definitely going to do the intake that Amos sent. I also got thank you guys for the guys at Dart. I got the Dart intake manifold, so we'll definitely be running that as well. So it'll be cool to see the dual plane versus the EFI manifold, and then the modified EFI manifold, and then do that comparison when it's stock, and then do that comparison after we put a camshaft and maybe start, making more power and stuff. So that'll be good. The other video that I put up today is and I thought that this one would break the internet for some reason. I thought that everybody wanted to hear about the results from this. It's not doing quite as well as I thought it would, but it's the sloppy stage 2 versus the truck Norris cam under boost. And the reason that I did this, I knew, and this is part of the reason that I bring this stuff to everybody, is that I knew what's going to happen, because I've run lots and lots of camshafts with LS motors, and I've run lots of them then again with boost. And I like to run them NA, and then I like to run the boost, so that I can tell people, hey, look, it did this NA and it did this with boost, and as long as the boost is consistent, it looks like the NA curve. And this is exactly what happened. And even more than that, even more than demonstrating that, because people wanted to know, well, is the truck Norris cam, with that really tight LSA, because that's going to have lots of overlap. It doesn't, by the way, because there's way too little duration for that to be a concern. It's too mild of a camshaft. If you have 107-degree LSA on a 246, 254 cam, then we're going to talk about some overlap. But on a mild camshaft like that, that's why the truck Norris cam is a truck cam. It's very, very, very mild. But the question is, well, if that camshaft works so well on an NA application for like a 4.8 or 5.3 or a 6.0, how does it work under boost? I mean, that's the question for really every LS cam. As soon as somebody says, oh, I put this cam and it did this. Yeah, but is it a boost cam? Well, now the answer is yes. It's always yes. And I'm going to be doing a video on that, because there's a lot of people in the camshaft building industry that don't think that that's so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to their website, and I'm going to look at all of the cams that they offer. And then I'm going to challenge them to show me one of those cams where I can't put it in a car or put it in a motor and run it, and then run it with boost and have it work well. I'll be really surprised if they even find one, other than some custom cam that's a 900 lift, 5,000 degrees of duration, and 2-digit LSAs, or what, something that's going to be dedicated for a pro stock motor or pro mod motor or something. And again, I'm not saying that you don't want to have a guy, if you're going professionally racing and you want to spec out your cam. What I'm saying is that for us average guys, that are putting a camshaft in and then putting 1,000 horsepower or less turbo on there, or even more than that. If you're 12 or 14 or 1,500 horsepower, like the Big Bang stuff, you can just pick any sort of off-the-shelf cam, and you'll make that power. If I was going for a lot of power, I would pick a bigger cam, but they'll all do that. And that was the point of this test, is that yes, the truck Norris cam is definitely a boost cam. It's definitely a turbo cam. It's also a nitrous cam and a blower cam. It's all of those things, because those things are just going to add to what's there. They're going to add to the power curve that it makes when it's naturally aspirated. It made a lot more power than the stock cam. It went from 365 to 400 and something, 20 something, I think. And then the sloppy stage 2 cam made more power than that, owing to the fact that it's bigger. One of them's a 212 intake duration. One of them's a 228. And so here's the thing. Guess what happens if we go from a 228 to like, we can only go to like a 231 or 232, because that gets near the limit of piston to valve clearance. But if we go up another step in camshaft from the sloppy stage 2, guess what happens? The same thing. It makes more power up top, and then would more than likely trade power down low, because that's what these camshafts do. At least every one that I've ever tested does that. So the bigger cam makes more power up top. It obviously and expectedly made less power down low compared to the truck Norris cam. And again, I fully expected that. The interesting part of this test, and the reason that I did it, was this little tiny section of RPM of boost and torque way down low at the start of the run. In fact, I had to go to great lengths to make sure that that part of it was specifically repeatable, because when you're running when you run these motors on the dyno, a turbo motor, any kind of turbo motors, even this LS, which this L83 worked fantastic and worked great. I didn't do ring gap on it. We just put it on. We only ran 7 pounds or 7.5 pounds. It was on E85. It had an air-to-water intercooler. It was run cold. I don't think it was going to hurt itself. If it hurt itself, it was destined to happen. There's nothing I could do about it. But we were very nice to it, and the thing runs good. It's a good motor. I really like it. But looking at that very first part of the curve, what you have to do when you're running it on the dyno is, and I've shown you guys this many times, especially the regulars that are here, the 2 live crew, they know that I've talked about this many times, is that when you make a run with a turbo and then you make another run, the low speed boost response will come up because you have more heat in the turbo. So what you have to do is you have to run it a couple of times to make sure that because you'll get to a point where you just don't keep increasing the response rate. You'll get to a point where the response rate is the response rate, and then it just keeps doing that every time. You have to make sure that you get to that point and know what that is. So it took a few runs, like the top part of the curve, that's all that boost part of it with the controller and stuff on it, that's all very repeatable. That does the same thing. But the load-in stuff, and especially the load-in stuff where it's not being controlled by the controller, where the load-in stuff is just a function of the torque output of the NA motor relative to the size of when we had a fairly good sized turbo on this thing. We had an S475 T6 from Summit Racing. So I purposely chose a big turbo. In fact, I originally wanted to do that test with a 4.8, but the 4.8, as you guys have seen, has a few issues that are going to be totally fixed. And that thing is definitely going to run. I know that, but it's going to take a little bit more time. I wanted to run on a 4.8 to show more response rate changes, but the 5.3 worked very well. So you get to a point where the response rate of how the turbo comes up has nothing to do with the controller, because you can close the wastegate, you can weld it shut, and that response rate will still always be the same, because it's not up to the wastegate yet. It's not up to where the wastegate would start controlling it yet. So you have to run a few runs, make sure that that's repeatable, get the runs, make sure that it has the airfield that you want, the timing that you want, and then you can swap cams. And then you have to go through the same procedure with both cams. So you have to do it with I had to do it with the sloppy stage 2. I had to do it with the truck Norris cam, and I had to make sure that those runs in that bottom part of the thing are repeatable. And after doing that, you definitely see a difference in the low speed torque, and you saw that NA. So it's not like we're not seeing it in both instances. You see the change in low speed torque, and we would see it even more if I ran this thing down to 2,000 RPM. We couldn't do that and then run it out to 6,500 and with boost and all that. But if we ran it down to 2,000, you'd see even more. And the other thing I'm pretty sure that you would see is this change in response rate if you were the kind of person that wanted to just put your foot in the throttle at 2,000 RPM on your turbo motor, which I don't recommend, and it's not a good idea, and it proves nothing. But if you wanted to do that, the change in response rate would be even greater on the street or on the chassis dyno than we're seeing on the engine dyno. Because what I'm doing on the engine dyno is loading the motor and counting like 7 Mississippis until this thing like gets to its stationary point and doesn't go any further, and then I release it. And that's an artificial load placed on both turbos, but it's placed on them equally, and it shows both of where they're responding to it. So if I'd gone down lower, you'd see even less torque from the 228 cam, and the truck Norris cam might continue to do well. So I think what you'd see is a bigger disparity between the two, and I think you'd see that disparity out on the street and at the track. Although at the track, hopefully you'd be up in the RPM range where you're using more of what the other one does. And then the flip side to that, the other side of that, we have one side of the RPM range at the very beginning, and then we have the other side of the RPM range, or actually in this case, the rest of the RPM range. Because the other thing is, and I've tested these kinds of things many times, is I ran this test at the same boost level. So the sloppy stage 2 cam made more power at the top and less power down low, and it did exactly that under boost. It made more power up top than the truck Norris did. It made less down low. The boost curves were the same. I demonstrated the boost curves in the video because you could see that they overlaid, except for that response rate down at the bottom. And so at the same boost, the cam that makes more power NA makes more power under boost. We've gone over that many, many times. It continues to do that, no matter what you do. But that's really not the whole consideration here. The whole consideration here is, in this case, we picked an S475, a T6, which is on this motor is almost assuredly a 1,000 horsepower turbo. I've made mid 900s with this turbo, so I'm pretty confident that we could get the other 50 out of it, because we weren't running very much boost, and it was working well, and I'm pretty sure I could get 1,000 out of it. But let's say it's a 1,000 horsepower turbo. Both of these cams will make 1,000 horsepower with that turbo. You can't just do that with the bigger sloppy stage 2 cam and not do it with the smaller cam. That's the thing. And that's why you need to consider all of this stuff when you're choosing a camshaft. Not just, well, what cam can I make 1,000 horsepower of? Well, how much time do you have? I'll list off like 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 of them, because they'll all do that. So both of these cams you could make 1,000 horsepower with. You're just going to do it at 1 PSI different boost level, or whatever, 1.5 PSI, whatever the difference is in power. It's actually probably less than a pound. So the difference between those two would be a pound or so at the top, at the peak, and it's going to be nothing down low because it's the other one's already making more power. And that's what you need to combine those two. So I can make 1,000 horsepower with a small cam, and it gives me much more boost response. And the thing is, when you're getting more boost response, the difference in power between the big cam and the small cam, the difference in torque down there gets like multiplied. So because you have more torque down there and you have more boost, you don't just have more torque, you have more torque and more boost, which is a lot more torque. So it's going to be, in this case, it was, the way that we were loading it in, it was 50 foot-pounds or more. And you would definitely feel that kind of difference. So it was already some down low NA, and then, you add more boost, and then it becomes, fairly big numbers. Again, I don't know if you should be trying to like roll into this thing at 2,000 RPM. Maybe guys do. I would, if I had a manual car, I'd be rolling into it, at a higher engine speed, maybe to get things going if I wanted to get things going. But the response rate will definitely improve with a camshaft that makes more low speed torque. And remember, I'm not talking about turbo specific cam valve events, none of that. All I'm looking at is this was this power curve, this was this power curve, this one did this one did this. And then when we did with the turbo, this one still did this, and this one still did this. And then, oh yeah, the smaller cam offered a lot more torque and boost response down low, and it will also make 1,000 horsepower. So when you're choosing camshafts, think about all that stuff, because there's an awful lot going on. So let's see what you guys have going on. I've got the next video I'm putting up is going to be the turbo 8.1. So like the super mega torque option, which will be very cool. And then I've got just a lot of stuff on testing that I did. I tested the new Holley split single plane intake manifold. We ran a bunch of other tests. I've got 87 octane versus 91 octane. You know, lots of really good stuff. So I'm sure you guys will like all the stuff that gets posted up. So let's see what you guys got going on. What is that? Someone's freaking out. Okay, let's see. 70 miles an hour, 1500. Talking about boost response, I wonder how much better a 6-liter responds than a 4.8 with the same turbo kit. Quite a bit, because a 6-liter will have 400 pounds. A 6-liter will have maybe near 100 foot-pounds of torque more down at the engine speed where you would be concerned about turbo response. So it will be dramatic, and it would be more dramatic. It gets more and more impressive, the change, the bigger the turbo that you use. If you're trying to use a GT35 turbo on a 4.8, it's going to be responsive. If you're trying to use this like S475, a T6 on that 4.8, and then you try it on a 6.0, the 6.0 is going to be like orders of magnitude better. On a little turbo, not that much, but the bigger the turbo that you choose, the greater you'll see a difference between those two. How would you suggest riding a hot side for a Silverado with long tube headers? I don't know. I don't know what the available real estate is there. Lots of guys, like the gentleman that has the 8.1, he used a remote. You know, it's back under the bed. Richard, would a 6-liter 4-cylinder and a 1-cylinder require bigger CFM carb compared to a V8 6-liter? You have a 6-liter 4-cylinder? And a one cylinder. I don't think with those other combinations, despite the displacement for me isn't the determining factor. I know that a lot of the calculations for carb sizing use displacement, but I don't. I use power output. So we have okay, with a 400 horsepower deal, we might put a 650 on it, and then we go up from there in different carb sizes. I don't use the formula based on engine displacement, because I don't think engine displacement will do that. I mean, I have, you know, you could have a 500-inch Cadillac motor that only makes 400 horsepower or less than 400 horsepower, 375 horsepower. It doesn't need a very big carburetor, despite what people think. Now, the thing that can happen with the carburetors is it will accept a bigger carburetor because it will have more signal, because it makes more low-speed power. It makes a 400 horsepower Cadillac will have more like average power production than a 400 horsepower, like 5-liter, for instance. So it could get away with a bigger carburetor and not degrade the drivability and the throttle response and stuff and the signal from the carburetor, because it's bigger. But still, it doesn't need that big of a carburetor to only make 400 horsepower. It just needs a 400 horsepower carburetor. Yeah, everybody hit the like button. Besides hurting a transmission, what would be the disadvantages of turning off the torque management on a GM street truck? I don't know. I'd have to ask the gentleman that has the turbo on his what the torque management is. He had somebody tune it, and I don't know what they did there. Port the heads on the 8.1. They're going to be ported. We'll try that. I just want to make sure that I get the stock baseline head flow correct. I don't know. I mean, everything was lined up on a bore plate and stuff, and it was all, the bore plate was bolted to the head, and then the bore plate was put in place. So you know, maybe a freshly machined one or something is going to be better. I want to get that right before we would do any porting on it. Overbuilt here. What's going on? Dan's here. Let's see. Richard, I think the turbo will still work just fine, even on Pro Stock or Pro Mod engine, and those cams are big. Like I said, I don't think somebody could show me a motor that's running NA and works and is in good working condition where you can't actually put boost on it, that it won't work with a turbo. I think it will, and if I miss on 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 out of 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000, that's, to me, that's still a win. Because I'm not saying that every cam actually is a turbo cam. There are better cams that I would pick, but for the vast majority of us, whatever cam you pick from Texas Speed or Cam Motion or whatever, if you pick a truck cam or a nitrous cam or a blower cam or a turbo cam or an NA cam, it will work with boost. Mike is here. See, you guys should, if you guys have questions about for Mike on running the turbo on his 8.1 in his 3500, ask away, because Mike is here. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer. It's a very, very cool dually. I'm trying to get him to take it to like Duct Tape Drags or one of those places, because it would, just because it's like super cool. It would be really fun. JPL, just got my F1A. Nice. Renegade kit. Do you think it's even worth trying to build the stock block? Is it a 2-valve motor? Is that what this is? Please remind me. Keep up the great work. Just started my first LS build. Thanks to you guys. Oh, by the way, guys, let me know if there is any interest in. I need to make some money here. So let me know if there's any interest in the L33. Does anybody need a boost ready all aluminum? The motor's got it's got everything on it right now. Without the turbo stuff, but it's an aluminum L33. It has the 799 heads. It's already been dyno tested. We already know that it works and it's in good working shape. It has 26/918 springs in it. It has either whatever cam you want in it, a truck Norris cam or a sloppy stage 2 cam. It has a truck intake. It has a manual truck throttle body. It has all the sensors on it, the IAC and TPS and stuff. It has a set of 80-pound Deca injectors on it that we ran with the E85 to make this kind of power. It has stock exhaust manifolds if you want those to make your turbo kit. I have some of those. What else? So if you're interested in that, please, I'm going to put my email down here. If that's something that you're interested in, it's a good motor, and I need to get rid of it just to make some money. Trying to raise some capital. I hate to see it go because it's really, I really like it. Let's see here. I keep putting in. There you go. Killer B16. There we go. There's the email address. If you're interested in the L33, you know, it's not a $500 motor because it has lots of stuff on it, but it's still a really good deal for somebody. I'm doing an old school 350 small block. I'm going fuel injected, coil on plug, and on 107 millimeter turbo. That's a big one. Gunther, Richard, do you think an LS1 with ported 243 heads, BTR stage 2, Cook's long tubes, and a Magnuson blower at 7 PSI will make 700 horsepower? I think so. My neighbor thinks only 650. An LS1 243, 700 at the flywheel or 700 at the wheel? And what Magnuson blower is it? So at 700 horsepower, it'd have to make like 500 NA. I think if it's flywheel horsepower, I think it could be close. Richard, I have a turbo 6-liter and a 2500 with a stock cam, and the power falls off bad after 4500. What cam would you recommend to bring my power up but also keep power down low? That truck Norris cam is really good if they have them in stock. The torque cam would work good for a daily driver. A stage 1 or maybe a stage 2 truck cam. Anything in there is going to help quite a bit. Take a look at the videos I have up on the 6. There's lots of 6-liter videos up, and actually you can look through, you know, 10 or 15 different camshafts and see which power curve you like. And that will tell you, you know, it'll give you good choices. Day 387 of asking for turbo 5-cylinder Volvo testing. Corsair, Richard, this is Steve. I was down at West Tech a few weeks ago with a red. Okay, 5.3. Please, here, Corsair guy, or Steve, send me an email so I have your information. I'm trying to do the stories and video on that test. And I was asking Steve about it. I was asking Brule about it today, and there seemed to be some mix-up on that exactly whose motor that was. I knew that it was not who they were telling me it was. Let's see, Killer B60. Okay, there's my email address again. I was down at West Tech with the red 5.3. Tested, I had 2050 break-in oil. What horsepower did I lose? Not a lot, probably. Supply chain issues, no 5 cylinders allowed. I would like to run the 5-cylinder 3700, but a Volvo, I like Volvos too. Seth is in the house. Allison, transmissions are expensive. They are. But Mike, isn't that your original Allison? So where's the turbo located? Where the muffler used to be? Nice. Can't beat an all aluminum V8. That's right. Super chats. Yeah, where's the super chats? I had a girlfriend who made her own alcohol. You love her, nice. Oh, there should be a poll, huh? Let's see. I forgot. You guys, I'm glad you guys reminded me. So we got the dyno data there. So what do we have? What tests do I have coming up? The 4.8. Okay, here, actually, we're going to, the poll tonight is actually not going to be on either one of the motors that we're talking about. It's going to be on the 3800. Will the Big Bang 3800 V6 reach 1,000 horsepower? So what do you guys think? The Big Bang V6 with, you know, heads or cam or turbo or whatever we're going to, I mean, it's going to be a turbo, but with a stock bottom end and ring gap, will it reach 1,000 horsepower before it blows up? Will the V6 reach that number? So that will be our poll for today. Kirk, are you testing the Comp 270 cam on the 8.1? I don't know. I have to look and see what those specs are. I haven't even looked for the 8.1 camshaft. The only one I have that I know that I have right now is I have the ZZ502. How's running batch fire motor? It just fires one side and then fires the other side. You use more fuel that way than you do when you run it sequential, but it doesn't really seem to do very much to power. Wendell, considering aluminum LS motor, but worried about the strength compared to an iron block. Jacob, the aluminum L33, the aluminum 5.3s, the LC9, the L33, those motors are as strong as the iron blocks. There's guys out there doing 1,500 plus horsepower with those, so there's nothing to be concerned with. You just don't want to try it with an LS1 or an LS2 or an LS3. And I say that, and some guys have told me that they've made a lot with them, but the 5.3s with the thicker sleeves are much more common. What turbo for 5 to 6 psi on a stock 350 non-intercooled? The GT45 would work fine for that. Love my guy, Collier guy. Michael's in the house. Let's see. Any Gen 2 LT1 testing coming up? Yes. The L33 is a 24X. It's a 24X. It has a rear cam, just like an LM7, basically. It also has a 1X cam gear on it. So if you change the front cover and you wanted to put a front, I don't know why you'd want to do that. If you want to put a front cam sensor on it, you can also do that. Any Gen 2 LT testing coming up? Yeah, I'm going to do the 302 version of that where we combine the 4.3 and the 5.7. Yeah, the 5.7 LS1 is not one that I would be trying to make a bunch of boosted power with. A 5.3, then you can get them from the junkyard. They're cheap. You don't have to get an aluminum one, just get an iron one. Wait, oh, did I not do that as a poll? I guess I didn't. I didn't do it as a poll. I just did it as a oh, silly me. Will the 3800 Big Bang make more than 1,000? Oh, I did do that, right? What happened here? Oh. Yeah. Yes. No. What's going on? I think my mouse is double clicking. There we go. Will the 30, let's try this again. 3800 Big Bang reach 1,000 horsepower? Okay, let's try this again. Will 3800 Big Bang reach 1,000 horsepower? Okay, there we go. Yes, will that motor hold 40 pounds of boost? I don't know. Okay, now you guys can. The Grand National and the 3800 Series 2 motors are different. I'm always so late. Did you dyno it? Did you dyno what? Quick poll results. Yeah, I know. I was quick on the click. The 4200 can do 1,000. You think that that's true? Richard, why you've chosen the 5.3 over the 6-liter for the earlier test? What earlier test? For the truck Norris versus the sloppy stage 2? Because I wanted to demonstrate boost response, and the 6-liter is already going to have enough response for both of those. Okay, let's see. Jamming your turbo for being late. Who will do the oil cleanup? I will be doing all the cleanup, as with all of the other ones. Nobody talks about the cams that make over 2,000 horsepower. I'm certain that the cam that I put in the Big Bang motor would make over 2,000 horsepower. It was just going to take more boost. Turbo Monza, have you ever gotten any of my emails? I don't think so. Did I answer them? I answer every email. Here's my email address. KillerB16 at AOL, and only one E in B. So you got to write it just as I wrote it here. And before I say that, or after I say that, I need to make sure that I put it correctly. So that's what it is. So it's will a stock non-turbo 3.8 hold 1,000 horsepower? I'd like to change my answer. This is not no, this is a 3800 Series 2 V6. The supercharged Grand Prix motor, the Buick GS, the Bonnevilles, all of those. Richard doesn't take emails from late people. I vote broken crankshaft at 750 foot-pounds. Well, that's one of the things that we're going to try to do is we're trying to minimize torque production and have it happen at the top of the RPM range with a rising boost curve, hopefully. Mike also said that I could borrow his, which is awesome. Mike also said that I could borrow his It's a 3.5, right? It's a J35 Honda V6 to run on the engine dyno, which would be very, very cool. No one ever answered. That's why I asked the 8.1. I can check my spam. Yeah, I can take a look in there and see what's there. Let's see. Unread. No, that's not it. Outbox. Junk. Nothing in my junk. No junk in the trunk. Archives. I don't see anything there. Yes, I just got a test mail from you. So that worked, but I don't see any other ones. I sent you a question on a 573 intake head combo. You wanted cam specs. I sent everything to you. I never received an answer. Did I answer before? I obviously answered if I wanted cam specs, right? What's the biggest engine I've ever built? The one that made the most power is the Big Bang motor. That's 1500. That's as far as I've gone. When are you going to do a BMW? I do like BMWs. That would be good. And I'd also like to do the Lexus and the Nissan V8s. I'm going to delete VVT on my L92. We did that on the LY6 on the Big Bang motor. Install a truck Norris cam. Is it true that I only need to change the timing gear? Yes. The chain, gears, and the timing cover, yes, because the whole cover, all that stuff's going to come off with the VVT stuff. And then get it tuned. And you will need springs if you're going to put some other kind of cam in it. The truck Norris cam is a 553 lift, so it might work if you have the LS3 style springs, which I think the L92 might. I would check them just to make sure. 572, yeah, that makes more sense. That's kind of what I figured you were talking about. Will stock LS rocker arms hold up to 247, 255, 625, 615? 200 pounds of seat pressure and 500 open at 7,500 RPM. Yeah, but why do you need that much spring pressure for that camshaft? That camshaft doesn't need that much spring pressure. And it doesn't need it for that RPM range either. I would be less worried about the rockers than I would be about the lifters. Uh, 3800 turbo track days use a big turbo and a cam in the 235 to 240 degree range. We'll at 50 with 600 lift, you'll get there. My question is, will that type of cam fit stock piston to valve clearance? Because that's what we're limited with. Remember, it's got to be with a stock bottom end. Yeah, it would be cool to see a VK56. I mean, any of the more modern Nissan and Toyota, the BMW stuff I like the 6-cylinder stuff. I've had a few of those. Those work really well. I haven't run any of the V8s on anything, but I have done some chassis dyno stuff on the inline 6-cylinder stuff. KD, I took my twin turbo TPI 305 to the chassis dyno Saturday and wasn't impressed. Uh-oh. I got a new Holley single plane, EFI intake, fuel rails, and ready to go upgrade. Speaking of the poll, do you think that the 3800 will do 1,000 horsepower? I really, really want to, and it made 600 so easy with the wrong with the wrong cam in it and lots of wrong stuff. It's just going to take a lot of boost to get it there. Because I think we can get the NA power to 300 or so without too much of a problem. So track days have gone 236, 236, 590 using a 1.7 rocker, and it fit. Comp has some good profiles that fit with stock pistons. See, that's the thing, is if it's a stock bottom end, it has to fit the stock bottom end. And so that's the thing that you run into with too much, and I'm assuming that it's going to be like every other motor, it's too much intake duration. And usually on stock motors, it's somewhere in the mid 230s, low to mid 230s at 50 is what fit. But I've never measured one, so I'd like to see how much we have. Maybe it's a good idea for me to, well, that's only a 220 cam though. That's pretty small, that NIC cam. We need more camshaft than that to really make power. All right, Gail, take it easy, man. $600 is a long way from 1,000. It really is. Didn't the 3800 have Duracast rods? I don't know. Could somebody answer that? Track days, you might be able to answer that. It's been a long time since I looked at one. Or were they powdered metal? I thought that they were powdered metal, but somebody else may have a better idea. $306 horsepower and 430 foot-pounds. A turbo 305 made that? It's got to do better than that. Charles are made out of Wisconsin sharp cheddar. So you're saying that they're not very strong? What's up, Rich? Does anyone know if an S475 will bolt-in swap to an S480? Both are T6s. You need to make sure that the hot side, that the exhaust is the same. Is the exit of the turbo the same? The S475 that I have is huge. You went 881 at 160 with which cam? With the NIC cam or with the cam, the big cam that you're talking about? I'm a glass half full guy. Not half empty. I mean, 600 seemed like it was nothing, and it happened at fairly low boost, and it happened with a combination that I think was far from optimized. It's not the camshaft. Obviously, I would put in it. Not my intake choice, and not the camshaft choice, not the cylinder head choice either. Just took my 1988 LS53 board 30 Summit 8mm dome turbo piston, Solvay Stage 2 S475. Well, an S475 is a near 1,000 horsepower turbo, so that's where you could be if everything was working right. Oh, the 236 cam. 236 is a pretty fair bit for a 3800 V6. It should work well. I don't think I'm going to run a single pattern cam though. I'm so excited for the 8.1. Me too. It is awesome and it's running really well. I like it when they cooperate, like that L33 also running very well. Would you be concerned with stock main bolts on the kind of spicy 416? We ran stock ones on 1,500 horsepower stuff, and so I wouldn't be concerned with them. How much ring gap for the Big Bang? We had 30 plus, whatever. It was just somewhere in the 30 to 35 range. The 3800 is definitely going to take it's definitely going to take more than a 3-bar map sensor to get us to 1,000 horsepower. I'm pretty sure. I wonder if you can find an 8.1 cam that will get you equal horsepower and torque. I don't know that you can get there with just a camshaft. And the thing that would be that might restrict that is, again, it's always available piston to valve clearance. There's a camshaft that will do that, but whether the camshaft that will do that will fit available piston to valve clearance. If you're limited to, let's say, a 230 or 235 cam, that might not get you there, especially with that stock intake manifold. With a modified intake manifold and maybe a ported head, but I don't know the cam alone is going to do that, because you have to make 5. Well, on a 496, that might not be as hard. So you have to make 555, maybe. $3,800 will surprise you. They don't take much. Yeah, but it's just math. If we make 300 NA, and then it'll make a certain amount at this boost level and a certain amount at this boost level. And although the 3,800 was doing a little bit better than the formula with the E85, so it was doing well, which is why I like the fact that it was responding so well, even up at the little over 600 horsepower. Is a 38 millimeter wastegate big enough for a precision 6266? I like the 45 millimeter stuff. Exhaust studs or bolts. We always use bolts. I don't remember using studs on anything. Gonna need to O-ring the heads to hold. Yeah, we're not doing that. It's just going to be MLS gaskets if you're talking about the 3,800. And it's going to be a good sized turbo, so it's not going to have good response rate, which we don't care about. And also we're going to try to program in a rising boost curve with RPM so that we have more of a centrifugal blower kind of thing, which would help us with, usually the torque thing is what's going to break them on the big bang stuff, because having 30 pounds out where it's running RPM, that's better than having 30 pounds at 4,500 RPM where it's going to make 1,000,000 foot-pounds. Motor Trend article, 700 plus horse, 5,900 RPM, 572 with race right, fully CNC. They use a stock performer RPM air gap. I can email the article link if you like. That was the premise of my question. Okay, well, send me another email so you can remind me of what's going on and what your question is. 2-cylinder heads for the 8.1 in the aftermarket, Dart and Raylar. Does Dart even have iron heads available anymore? Arizona Speed Marine. Somebody else was telling me about some aftermarket heads, so I'll send you some information, Mike. He was asking me to maybe try them. Todd, I have your exhaust manifolds. Yeah, we run stock bolts or just regular bolts for the turbo stuff. I know that on the 305 that we ran with heads, cam, and intake, it was 375 or 380 or something like that, NA. So that should get you quite a bit of boosted power. And I think we made 675 or 700 or something with a little torque storm on it. Boost on a Sniper throttle body. The Sniper makes lots of different kinds of throttle bodies. So are you talking about one that has fuel injectors in it and stuff? Do they make one that's for boost that has a map sensor in it that will monitor that? If If I send you an entire LS stroker, would you put it together? Nah, I've done that. But the stroker goes together the same as a regular one does. It's just a crank and rods and pistons and bearings and all of the normal stuff, just like a non-stroker does. I know, I'm Todd. I'm ready to come get that. I got the turbo sitting here, and I'm ready to come get the bike and exhaust manifolds ready to go. Did you get my message about the Holly? I sent you a text today. Before the Speed Demon was the Speed Demon, it was the Flat Fire, and they had a boosted flathead in that one. Tyler's out. Okay, if you want me to get it, let me know, and I will. There has been a few LS things. I like to get them when that's why I love that L33. I like to get them when they're assembled and they run and they work. It makes life a lot easier. I know my buddy Mark Sanchez has a flathead in the room that I go stay in. There's one sitting in the room that's all assembled. Roommates pay their bills. I like to hear that. Once I get my KZ 1100 running, I'd like to rebuild it and give it a small turbo. There you go. I'm going to order a VZ21 RHB31 mini turbo going on a like new 82 XR500 Honda. Nice. 4.4 miles on it. Sats it's 86. For the go-kart. Tired of seeing half done. There you go. Getting those projects done. Richard, the Crate Smallback Chevy I just got had a forged crank. Some of them did, and never knew that Chevy did that in the new, not rebuilt Vortec engines. Did they use it in a truck or something? I think the Flatfire guys, I can't remember how fast they went. They went pretty fast with that. They had a Vortec on their flathead for a while, and it did pretty good. On the 530 building for my buddy's 52.5 window, we measured the stock Gen 3 piston 610 grams with rings. The new DSS pistons were 612 with rings. Nice. So you're match balance, match special stagger. Big Bang Hayabusa. I just feel Hayabusa needs this more power. I would like to have one of those just to ride around. I took my project car on its latest maiden voyage and it didn't blow up. That's good. That's a win, right? That's a W. Or Big Bang VMAX. That's also good. So what's going on with our poll here? Will the 3800 Big Bang reach 1,000 horsepower? Wow, we got more no's than yeses. We got 54% saying no. Only got 156 votes. Come on, guys. We got almost 200 people here. Have you ever thought of doing any 4G63T stuff? I have. I've done lots of, not a lot, but I have done some stuff on a chassis dyno with Eclipses and stuff back in the day. Not Evos, but the Eclipses. Next time you're here, I'll show you the boost. Oh, was that like a fire or crash or something on that one? My bag got my fender bender, so I'm going to LS swap it. There you go. VMAX back in the day, those things were animals. The chassis is not meant for nitrous. So Dan, you built those 4G63Ts? Admiral, so we need a 6.24 Big Bang at some point. I'm betting it can rival the LS. Do the heads flow well on those 6.2s? Will over torquing the cylinder heads pull the cylinders out of round? You have to have really, really strong bolts and a really strong threaded section of the block to be able to do that. Normally, it's like if you're trying to do that with a stock rod bolt, it's just going to stretch the rod bolt and not do anything to the head and not do anything to the cylinder. What weight do you use on a fresh LS build after break-in? Do I change the weight? The break-in oil that we have is like a straight 30 weight. And I'll put that in there. Sometimes I'll put just a conventional 530, not even a break-in oil. If it's an LS, I'm more concerned on break-in stuff. I'm much more concerned about flat tapping stuff than I am about roller stuff. So I'm much less concerned about a hydraulic roller cam, and then much less concerned about the bearings and stuff. It's mostly, for me, the break-in concern is like high zinc stuff and a break-in oil, mostly for hydraulic or solid flat tapping cam stuff. So I'm thinking I should be fine with 20 overbore on my LC9. Yeah, you'll be fine. So on the cylinder head, should I keep my 243s? Well, how much power do you want to make with an LC9 and 243s? You can make, you know, mid 1,000 horsepower numbers, I'm pretty sure. I've been doing a lot of research, and I can make near 500 when unbridled, even without pulling the valve covers. So just like what, with a camshaft or something in it? Okay. Do they even have cams for those? Is there any aftermarket support at all for a 6.2? Will the 8.1 hit 1,000 foot-pounds at 15 psi? It will hit 1,000 foot-pounds at less than 10 psi. It won't hit 1,000 horsepower though. Not unless we put a camshaft and stuff in it to get it to run some RPM, because it's still making peak power below the crossover point between horsepower and torque. I mean, this thing already made 870 foot-pounds, so it's not far off, and that was just at like 7 pounds. Two more minutes. Mine was front-wheel drive. Okay, Todd, I'll give you a call. We'll talk about the Holly thing. Yeah, the 8.1 will hit 1,000 foot-pounds way before 15 pounds. How long should break-in oil be run? We run it through the break-in cycle and then through the first couple of pulls and stuff, and then take it out. But when I had the motor in the car, I ran break-in oil for 500 miles. Oh, Liver Noise makes the aftermarket stuff for the 6.2. Okay. Can you add a not sure to the poll? Yeah, we're going to close the poll down. So it's 53% no and 47% yes. So a little bit skewed on the no, on the negative. We're not showing the love for the 3800. I'm guessing the LS sold all the 8.1 Thunder. It didn't really, in terms of video footage or in terms of viewership, the 8.1 did really well. And the 8.1 was just the first like generic one with headers and stuff. It wasn't even the LS one, the LS video with the sloppy stage 2 and the truck Norris cam should have been a home run video. There should have been a lot of people interested in that. Or at least I thought that there was. For 1,200 horsepower, your LC9, you don't need any other head, just a 243 head. And if you wanted to go in and do a little bit of cleanup or whatever yourself, that would be fine. But 1,200 horsepower in an LC9 is a cam and then springs and then boost. Yeah, I'm saying at 3,800. Yeah, that you don't need more bore, you don't need more stroke, you don't need any of that. 1,200 horsepower is easy. if you put a good enough size cam in there, and you have 243 heads, and you put a Trailblazer SS intake manifold on there, you could get up near 500 NA. So it's not even going to take very much boost to get there. The 3800 is going to blow a head gasket. I think most of the nodes haven't watched the 3800 turbo video. The 8.1 is engine porn. It does. Twin turbos will just look good. And by the way, I've got those. The guys from Fowler sent me the exhaust manifolds. So I'm going to run twins on something, maybe the 4.8 liter, and run twins on that with those. And then I kind of want to blow. I kind of want to blow into one of those intercoolers that sandwich in between the Holley stuff. So I'm going to maybe see if I can get one of those. We definitely need to match the L8T to the Boss 6.2 at some point. Maybe throw the 6.4 Hemi in there. I don't think the Boss 6.2 will do what that L8T can do. I know they've done 2,000 horsepower with a block. I mean, it had rods and pistons in it, but that's a lot. TBSS 92 millimeter throttle body, BTR stage 3 turbo kit for the upper end. Yeah, that's fine. Twins on the 8.1. I have twin GT35s and twin GT45s, so there's enough. I do want to do a rotary, Alan, very much. And I want to go down, and when I go down the south, I need to take a day and try to go hit up Rob and see if he can help me get some sort of rotary together to run on the engine dyno. Oh, those intercoolers are $2,500. Yeah, I'm not buying one of those. Yeah, the shear or is Frozen Boost one of those too? I've never tried one. I've only ever run one on the engine dyno with somebody else's. Will the MBSS intake 25? Will it take 25 to 30 pounds? I think it will be fine there. We've run that much in fast intake manifolds, and I honestly think that a factory one might be a little stronger than a fast. I've heard guys complaining about that. I've never had one leak, but I wouldn't see why the factory one shouldn't do that well. You know, be an interesting video is to do a pressure destruction test of the intake manifolds and see where that is. I would be curious to see what a factory GM one Trailblazer SS does versus like a Dorman one. Because I wonder if they went thinner in some areas and if the seam is not quite as nicely done. I wonder if there would be a burst threshold for those that would be different. Ooh, a CR80, those are cool. TIC Performance does make an intercooler brick. That's right. The Holley high rim and low rim 1600. Are there any motors that you would like to test that you haven't? Yes, the list is endless. Do fast intakes survive boost? Well, we ran them on all of the, well, not all of them, the first 3 Big Bang motors, I think. Definitely on the 4.8 and the 5.3, and we were running 26 pounds or something like that. So it was fine there. Are there any parts piston using the stock size pin? Do you want to put it on a stock rod? If so, the JE pistons that I put on the 4.8 had a stock pin in them. Okay, one more minute. One more minute. How much boost will a GT45 make power to on a stock bottom in 5.3? The GT45 is like the 700 to 800 horsepower turbo. So it depends on the power output of the NA 5.3 that you're talking about. If it's bone stock, the turbo will make more boost to try to get there. If it's a cammed 5.3, it doesn't take very much boost to get to the limit of that turbo. A CT525 has forged pistons now? Yeah, the headlights now are all daytime running lights, right? That's been for a long time. Stock Gen 453, should I nitrous it or not? If you want more power, we've run 300 shots on stock 5.3, so you can do that. I take that back. It wasn't a stock 5.3. It had a cam in springs. I reckon the 3800 limit will be piston crowns that come apart and heads that tend to lift in the middle post with big power. It will be interesting to see how far it goes. I'm curious too. I need to order a cam for it and some MLS gaskets. The 396 is coming along. I talked to Bostic when I was down at West Tech, and hopefully it won't be too long here. Sloppy Stage 2 cam, my 5.3 with a GT45. Where does it stop making power? I don't know what you mean if it's by the RPM that it stops making power is dictated by the camshaft and the heads and the intake. They are all matched together to decide where that thing is going to make power at. If you have a rising boost curve, you can get it to make power a little bit farther. But if you can take a look at what the video that I put up today, you can see a sloppy stage 2 in a 5.3. It doesn't have a GT45. It has an S475, but that's not going to make any difference because we only ran it at like 650 horsepower. So you can see where that thing makes peak power. It'll give you a really good idea. Yeah, Caleb. I'm looking forward to seeing the 396 too. I'm excited about that one. It's going to take a lot more work than normal to get it all together and get it to be right, but it will be very, very cool because it'll be it'll be a reproduction of an L78, which I'm kind of excited about. Turbo 8.1 or yank it and swap in a turbo 6-liter. It depends on what you're doing. If you want to race and you want RPM, then I would do the 6-liter. If you want to spin the tires mercilessly all the time, a turbo 8.1 will certainly do that. Run the 3800 on methanol before you blow it up. See the difference from E85. I kind of would like to do that. I would like to do that like at 15 or 20 pounds or something. I've never run anything on methanol, and I would just like to try it and see if it makes more power. When I was using Cometics, I used to spray copper coat between each layer and over torque the studs a bit to 90. We ended up going to fire rings. Okay. Well, and why did you put copper coat between the layers? Turbo modes, I have 2200 cc injectors so you can run methanol. I have some 1500s, but I might need, well, I won't need anything bigger than 1500s at the boost level that I'm running them at for methanol, I don't think. I'm gathering parts for the same, but with stock aluminum heads. Oh, so an L89 option motor. Yeah, those are cool. A lot of people don't know that that's just a cylinder head option, that you could get that on the L72. I was told you could also get that on an LS6, but I had never seen any. Thanks, Turbo Monza. Yeah, we've got some. I can't remember. I don't know if they were EV1 or EV6. I can't remember now. It's been a while since I used them. Okay, guys, I got to get going. But it was great getting back and talking to everybody. It's been a few days since I got back from West Tech. A lot of stuff to do. We got more videos coming up, so if you haven't checked them out, make sure to check them out. The Sloppy Stage 2 versus Truck Norris, and then part 1 of the 8.1, and then part 2 coming up with, the more boost sequel. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow.